Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Shifting Schools podcast. My name is Tricia Friedman, and I get to be your host this week. Jeff Udick, my co-host, is going to be so envious when he hears this conversation because our guest this week does something that Jeff and I are both big fans of. He talks about what it means to really think about being a problem solver and doing it from an interdisciplinary lens. On this week, we are speaking with Jerome James, who is an award-winning energy expert. He's going to talk to you about what AI means for the field of engineering, why he loves being an engineer, and how we can instill that problem solver mindset in our students. Again, this episode is part of our summer-long mini-series exploring the future world of work. If you missed the kickoff episode last week, you might want to check that one out too. Before we welcome Jerome James to the show, we do have a quick word from our show sponsor. Hey listeners, a quick pause before we dive back in. Since all summer long, we are talking about the future world of work, we know any future is only possible when we help students face the challenges of the now. That's exactly why we want to tell you about something that's going to change the way you understand your students' lives. It comes from the groundbreaking group at Alongside, an AI-assisted mental health support tool built specifically for K-12 schools. And this summer, Shifting Schools listeners can be among the very first to access Alongside's brand new 2025 Youth Mental Health Report. It's packed with insights drawn from over 250,000 anonymous AI chats students had on Alongside's evidence-based platform over the past school year. Here's just a small glimpse of what you'll learn. Why teens say sleep is one of their biggest struggles, what's making school life balance feel impossible, the unexpected ways boys are learning to ask for help, why confidential, self-guided AI tools resonate so strongly with students, and what the research is showing about how tools like this can be used in safe and effective ways. Want the report and bonus access to an exclusive webinar? Head to www.alongside.care/shifting to get on that list. We're proud to have Alongside as a sponsor this summer, and even prouder to help spotlight their work in reimagining student mental health. Check out the show notes to learn more or head straight to www.alongside.care/shifting. And now, back to the conversation. And with that, please welcome to the Shifting Schools podcast, Jerome James, who's here to help us understand ways that the engineering profession is changing and what it means to get our students ready for that shift. Jerome, it's such an honor to be speaking with you. I'm very excited about digging into your expertise. And I want to start by saying congratulations, because you have a show that we will link to in the show notes entitled Engineering the Future. And it's recently won some honors. So congratulations on that. And I love that your show really, it does this spotlighting of the engineering community and, what's ahead for engineers, which is a world I know zero about. So I am prepared to just completely realize I don't know where that profession is headed, but I'm glad you are here to maybe give us your take on that. For young students who are thinking about going into engineering, what do you think is maybe likely to change in the next few years?
Yeah, thanks, Tricia, for the opportunity to talk to your community today. Unfortunately, the podcast has been put on this hiatus indefinitely, but it had a really great run in the last 4 years. We put out almost 50 episodes. It's been really fun to connect with the engineering community in Ontario and get those stories that really connect the community together. It was actually produced by a producer called Peter Reynolds. He has a production company called For the Record Productions. He has his own podcast. He's great. We've been putting this thing together, bootstrapping it for the last couple of years, trying to find great, interesting stories. We were able to talk to deans of engineering schools in Ontario, to engineering firm CEOs, to the chief planning officer of Metrolinx. But some of the coolest things I got to do was to talk to elected members of the provincial legislature. So talking to the Green Party leader, Ted Chu of the provincial Liberals, just about what they see as the future of the profession and how we can move forward in a more equitable, sustainable way. And it was a wild ride, and it was a great opportunity.
Well, and again, it's sort of, in the title itself, thinking about what it means to engineer the future and that anything we build needs engineers behind it. Our audience is always interested in making sure that learners of all ages, that they understand there's a wide variety of career pathways. And at the same time, it's really hard if you're an educator to always keep up with what's changing in the field.
Right.
So for a teacher who they've got a student and they're like, I like to build things, but I'm not sure if I want to become an engineer. What are some other questions that you're thinking, a young person, reflect on whether or not you like doing this, or reflect on whether or not this is in your skill set, or if you want to build that skill set? What are some things that you're thinking this is essential if you want to be an engineer?
Yeah, that curiosity, that idea of I'm curious, I want to learn more, always being hungry for not just the face value answer, and being your own detective and wanting to take things apart and learning every aspect of how it works and how it could be better, and putting it back together, see if it works anymore. I mean, that was like my childhood, like race cars, electric driven cars, motors, all that kind of stuff. I used to take them apart, putting them back together, and yeah, I was obsessed. And when I started school, some of the skill sets that tend to lean well towards engineering would be like analytical stuff, math. If you have a proclivity for solving problems from a math perspective, math problems, I would say engineering would be a really great option for you. Yeah, I feel like it's the shortcut towards a career of curiosity and daily problem solving.
I love that. So if you like solving problems, this is maybe something to be thinking about. And I'm also wondering if, of course, AI is top of mind for so many people. I was not that kid who was comfortable breaking something and trusting that I could put it back together. But Jerome, I'll share just like briefly, I was traveling for work recently and my coffee maker wouldn't work. Coffee is like super important to me. And so I was like, okay, maybe I can fix this without calling housekeeping. And I used ChatGPT. I took a few pictures of different components and it walked me through what I could do to fix it. And I realized with some things, like that's not necessarily possible. But what I did notice was, okay, I feel a little bit more confident now playing around with something and working on it.
Absolutely.
Do you think, like, for young aspiring engineers, there are some ways that technology is maybe going to change who can see themselves in that profession? Is AI something that you think engineers are talking about widely and thinking about what does this mean for our work?
So I definitely think that AI will lower the barrier to entry for becoming that problem solver, but you still have to feel like you're the person that is able to do the problem solving. So even forget about talking about AI for a second. It's almost a mindset. Engineering is like a mindset for me. Like, if you believe that you're the one that can solve the problem, most likely you will be able to solve the problem. It's just a matter of time. And if you keep putting yourself in that position of, I am the problem solver, and society does that once you get the moniker of engineer, those things become second nature. You actually self-select yourself to be the person to solve the problem, and it just kind of snowballs from there. I always tell people that you don't own it until you really start engineering school. Well, one of the ways that you own it during engineering is when you're at a party and of mixed disciplines, and people are like, is there anyone an engineer? Or can someone fix this? Or, Jerome, you're an engineer, you can figure it out. That line is like, at some point, you just own the role, and problems find their way to you, and you become that person, and you own the role, and it become that mind frame becomes a little easier, and you don't look at problems as daunting walls anymore. You look at it as an opportunity for growth and to fix something, and it's more of a exciting proposition than a daunting one after a while.
I love that. And that's really great, I think, for our audience to hear, because I think teachers can queue up problems in a way that's like, hey, trust yourself, maybe break it down into smaller steps first, but let's see this as an opportunity for you to gain that capacity to see yourself as a problem solver. And
Absolutely.
what's interesting with what you're saying also is we need that mindset in every component of life. And you're in this new role professionally where your role is the first for a mental health hospital that you've partnered with. And it's true. Like I don't often think of engineering and mental health together in the same sentence, but there's problems there to be solved. Can you say a little bit more about how that role came to be, and how somebody with your background, it kind of makes total sense actually that there's going to be a partnership? Because I'm also just interested in our audience understanding young folks who maybe want to go in engineering and they've got these other interests or passions. Maybe we don't do a good enough job of showing there's a connection there that maybe you didn't realize.
Yeah, great. Well, my profession is energy management. I've kind of focused my all of my engineering capabilities and drive towards energy management and sustainability. I'm very passionate about the climate crisis, and I feel like I get the opportunity to work in a space every day where I'm using my engineering skills for good instead of evil, right? Like, try to move the bar forward in any capacity that I can. And with every position that I get in the future, I want to ever increase my influence and capacity to make that change. And so, yeah, this is a really great opportunity with CAMH. And if you think about it, any building or institution uh, consumes energy. It's just, how big are you, and are you doing anything to manage that energy that you're consuming in an efficient way? So that's no different than a hospital, a university campus, a school, or a bunch of apartment buildings. They all have a lived built space. There's a building envelope that needs to be heated and cooled. And the better you manage the energy consuming in those buildings, the better off the planet will be in the future. And so CAMH has realized that position of sustainability is an important one to them, and they want to bring in expertise to help move the bar forward into utilizing their utilities in a more sustainable, energy conscious way. And that's on me to work with the team to create a framework or plan to achieve those types of goals.
And this is where I'm wondering, you mentioned you'll be working with a team. So I'm making an assumption, when we're talking about energy, when we're talking about the way we use our spaces, uh, I'm willing to bet there's going to be some people that have worked in that space and things have been done a certain way for a long time. And you're going to have to invite them to be thinking about different ways to use the space in order to be more energy efficient. When you're working with a team, I'm wondering, even though your work is very science, math based, is there an element to your work that's also just very, hey, understanding why humans are resistant to change, or understanding like, how do we communicate why this matters? Does that show up in your work too?
100%. If you're not a good communicator, if you can't break these ideas down into easy to consume bite-sized chunks that the average person can understand and care about, you're not going to get anywhere. So the technical math side of things is to get management on board to adopt policy, spend money to get things done. But the soft skills of changing a mindset or a philosophy around doing things or behavior is very difficult, and it takes someone that knows how to communicate ideas to level with people, to understand what their value system is and how that aligns with your value system, and finding out a way to meet in the middle. Most successful plans, however, remove that human element from the mix, where you want to set up a system where you can't help but it's like fail proof, in the sense that the path of least resistance is not something that totally throws energy management out the window. And so, but anyways, there's sometimes it's the way you do something, especially in a manufacturing plant. Change management, process management, changing the way that you use a tool. Compressed air is very expensive from an energy standpoint, energy consumption standpoint. So changing the way that you use a hand tool that's driven by compressed air versus maybe switching that tool to something that's more energy efficient, you're going to get a lot of pushback and whatnot. So it's that process of creating change, but it has to be in a sustainable way that you can get people on board that have been doing something for the last 20 years and they know what they know. You need to be cognizant of that. There's going to be a learning curve, and you need to work with people to get that buy-in, that stakeholder buy-in, before any change can happen.
I'm going to ask you to humor me for a second here, because as you're talking about what that means at your level, I'm wondering if there's a way for people to think about experimenting with that at a much lower stakes level. As you were going through that, I was thinking about like my home office where I do most of my work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, because my wife has a hybrid job, sometimes she also uses this office. And so we've done a few different like configurations of the setup and the desks. But I'm thinking about actually some of it is not very energy efficient because of the extra lighting we're using, because of the position of one of the desks, where if it was moved, just the primary lights here could be the only lights. And what I'm about to suggest is like, could it be an experiment where we're like, okay, let me not only think about my office setup, but also the way we communicate that. Because if I were to just like move my wife's desk and not explain it, that's going to have a much different response to if I communicate it in a way that's like human and nice and comes with a thorough explanation. I mention all of that and I ask you to humor me because I'm wondering if an experiment like that or something else comes to mind where you're like, do you want to practice the mindset of engineering? And engineering in Jerome's world, where we're thinking about sustainability, we're thinking about energy in a way that asks us, yeah, like just try out this change. Because even my desk example comes with, I've got to communicate it in a thoughtful way. I can't just do it.
That's a perfect example. It doesn't matter if it's at home and you're moving desks versus rolling out expensive frameworks of upending a strategy at work. You have to, there is the human element in both of these, right? So if you can't articulate the reasons why this desk move is important to both of you, you're going to get some pushback, and you might be able to do it, but then could be resentment. It works for the first week, and then you go on vacation, you come back, and things are shifted back, and or purchases are made that lock in capital that can't be reversed easily, and then all of a sudden it's not an easy conversation anymore. Having those hard conversations up front, really recognizing that there's a mutual benefit to every problem, well, every solution for those problems can get you miles ahead, save you time and effort later on down the line. And it's just better for both parties in the future. Yeah.
Your work with the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers gives you this great seat, I'd imagine, to think about, like, what are employers looking for? Can you say a little bit more about that network and just what is top of mind for you when you're thinking like, hey, somebody new to the field, this is the mindset, or this is the skill set, or this is the thing that those who have that hiring power, this is what they're looking for. This is what they are expecting for future engineers coming to work for them.
Yeah, no, the work I did on the board of the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers was amazing. It was invaluable experience to see advocacy for the individual engineer at different levels of government. But to answer your question, what do I see as important for someone that is are they entering engineering, or they're already an engineer and looking to
Let's say they're
capitalize?
already an
Okay,
engineer, and let's say like you were hiring somebody to work with you. Like, what is something that you would say, like, this is what I'm looking for. This is actually what would make the difference in terms of hiring.
for sure. So I would say mindset is everything. If you can demonstrate a stick-to-itiveness attitude, have a clear analytical approach to solving problems, showing an employer that you may not have done something before, you might not know the answer, but you have a sound, like, kind of process and approach to solving any problem that's put in front of you, those are the people that will succeed in the future. And so really believing in yourself, like, you wouldn't believe how much a little stick-to-itiveness and belief in yourself goes a long way. I've sat in on interviews where you hear a lot of ums and ahs, and I think I could do this. I believe that maybe in this situation, you just drop all the hesitation and just focus on what you know you can bring to the table, and that will shine through and make you that much more valuable and in the eyes of a potential employer.
So you have me wondering about this hiring practice that I read about recently, that there are some companies that they're inviting the applicant to play a video game. And they want to watch them play the video game to see how they will respond to like moments of failure or frustration when they can't figure out something, and see, like, will you meet frustration with, as you're mentioning, like a confidence or some kind of strategy or coping mechanism. Jerome, when you talk about having that stick to itness, Is there a hobby that you had, or is there something that you did outside of the academic pursuit of engineering that you're like, hey, you know what? Like, this may have helped me develop that confidence and develop that trust in myself to solve problems?
um, I don't know if it led into it, but I know my main hobby for the last 10 plus years, actually since high school, so for the last 20 years, has been photography. And not just taking pictures, but like literally owning the full process of photography. I love collecting vintage SLRs from the 60s and 70s. I love reading about Ansel Adams and large format cameras from the 1800s and early 1900s. I shoot film. I develop my own film. I own the processing process. I own a 3D printer, so I make parts to help home scan using a DLSLR method, a scanning technique. So really, that has been my escape, and there is no bounds for the amount of depth you can get in becoming a technical walk with regards to photography. And I find that it's like my escape, and people are looking at me being like, that's like a career in itself.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But I'm not doing it on the clock. It's on my own timeline, taking a film camera out and shooting a single roll of film and then developing it is very calming, relaxing. It's like denial of gratification almost, because you don't know if any of the shots turned out or not. And I love it. Like, actually, photography, traditional photography is magic. Just seeing images appear from film is magical.
I mean, there's two things that I love about that. A, what you're saying with traditional photography, and you've got to trust that your use of the film is worth it. It's
Mhm.
not like getting your phone out and taking pictures. But B, you also have me thinking about what you were saying with the mindset and with the importance of stick-to-itness, of the value in see how far you can take a personal interest or a passion. And photography really plays into that because, as you referenced, there's the technical side, there's the art side, there's the enjoying of the process side that you're right,
Mhm.
like that's limitless.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think that might be really great advice, especially for young people of, do you have that stick to itness with your own interest?
exactly. Yes. Are you the type that picks up a million different things and you get a certain uh, pathway towards something and then you put it down and pick up the next thing? It really lends itself well to the engineering profession, how well you can stick to something and see it through. And that is a real life lesson, I think, of the type of people that actually go into engineering. Is your employer's hiring you to create solutions to short-term problems, long-term problems, and your ability to persevere, come up with different solutions, and stick to it to the end matters greatly.
Jerome, can I just ask you in closing, because it strikes me that you've merged engineering with another passion of yours, solving some of our biggest problems around energy and sustainability. How does somebody get to that stage? Because I'm guessing it's an assumption that maybe right away in your career, a beginning engineer maybe can't be the problem solver in the field that matters most to them, that maybe there is some time experience developing your portfolio, so to speak. How did you get to that role? And for somebody who's thinking, I don't want just to be in this role, but I want to be in this role, in this position, working on these kinds of problems, what advice do you have for them in terms of, if you want to get to something really niche, really specific, here's what you need to do?
Oh, absolutely. And And I would advise you to find that niche earlier on in your career than later. Envisioning a goal, super important, especially in engineering. Employers don't want to hire generalists for the most part. You want to, what I would say is you want to take time to find out what you care about. You don't want to be in a career that you don't care about. And that's the cool thing about engineering, is so broad and vast. There's so many different directions, especially with all these new career options. If you like mechanical engineering and electrical, and you think robotics are the coolest thing in the world, they have these new mechatronic degrees that are taking over campuses in Ontario. So you really have an opportunity to really dream and have and understand what that niche is, get a couple jobs in different aspects of that, but then really figure out what you want to become a subject matter expert in. Really think about it and then go for it and go deep. That's when you get job offers thrown at you for being an industry leader in a certain area. And that's when you get the real dollars in engineering. You don't get paid being an engineering generalist. If you look at any type of job opportunity, once you become like a mid-career, later career engineer, they want 5 to 7 years in a certain area. They probably want you to do a couple specialization courses, and they want you to be their go-to person, and they will pay you for it. So that's my suggestion. Really figure out what you want to do. Have that shining light, North Star, driving you, and because you're gonna feel like it's not worth it. There's a lot of menial tasks and jobs that you have to get through to get some sort of work experience before you can get your PEng. But after that, really focus on what do you want to get deep knowledge in, and go for it.
I love that. And Jerome, I lied to you. I have to ask one more question after you mentioned that, because, it's very, for anybody who's just listening to this and not seeing the video version, it's very obvious that you enjoy your work. Like, I feel like I can sense you talking about it in a way that I'm sure not every single day is great, but what would you say, also for people who are maybe like, okay, I'm going to go to school for this, that part's not going to be easy. When you think back on your career so far, what for you is like one of maybe the most unexpected delights of being an engineer? Like, sure, I can imagine a lot of people that like problem solving, as you've said, they're drawn to this. But what's an aspect of the work that you're like, this is actually like really cool, really fun, or I enjoy this? And maybe I didn't know this was going to be such a great part of being an engineer.
When things come naturally to you, when you can spot a problem and you already know what the solution is, and you get to explain it to a group of people, and then they see the realization of like, oh yeah, that is actually the right way to do that. Thanks. It just feeling like you are bringing a solution to a problem and helping others. It's your way of helping others in the world, basically, using your superpower that you've been honing for your career. It's a very enjoyable feeling. And it takes time and effort to get to that point. But solving the problem, seeing your work out in the open for everyone to see. I remember I like to use this example in job interviews, where I used to work for a company called Clear Result, and I did technical review on giant multi-million-dollar combined heat and power energy systems. And when you're in it, you're just slogging away, trying to review calculations from a third-party engineering company. And you get to the point, okay, their numbers make sense. Okay, so we're going to release the funds so that they can go build this thing. But then a year, 2 years later, you see the release of this steam generating combined heat and power system that's helping deliver energy efficient steam and electricity to a hospital in Northern Ontario. And you can see the system functioning. You feel like you made an impact. You feel like you made a difference. So yeah, it's a really great feeling to see that you can make an impact in the world.
That totally makes sense because I feel like all of the wellness research that talks about service is actually like, if you want to boost your own personal well-being, being of service to others does that. So that's your job. Yeah. So I would imagine that that feels pretty good. Jerome, thank you so much for kind of taking us behind the curtain in your career pathway. We will be sure to link to your work, link to you on LinkedIn, which I think is also, if you've got high school students who are like, you know what, let me just see if I can get a taste of what these different career pathways are like. I kind of think it's interesting even just to see what are different folks talking about in their professional industry. So it's been a joy to follow you in that space. And I wish you a great rest of your summer. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tricia. Thanks for the kind words. And this has been a lot of fun.
Hey there, dedicated listener. If you've made it this far, we know you're passionate about shifting the way education works. And Tricia and I appreciate you. If you loved what you heard today, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to rate and review Shifting Schools wherever you listen to podcasts. Those ratings help us reach even more educators just like you. And if you know someone who could benefit from these conversations, please share this episode with them. Just one person. Think of the impact we can make together. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter for even more great content. And if you haven't already, join us at Camp Shifting Schools, where the conversations keep going long after the podcasts end. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and thank you for being part of Shifting Schools.